Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. This will be Part 6, Chapter 7, entitled A Test, the sequel. It was Izuku's last day of house arrest, and instead of cleaning the dorms along with Todoroki and Bakugo, he found himself on campus, nervously fidgeting outside of Mr. Hound Dog's office. The cheery phone call he received from Principal Nezu at 7 a.m. didn't reveal much, but Izuku could pick up the hint of excitement in his voice as he told the green-haired boy to report to the guidance counselor's office at 8 a.m. sharp. Due to missing orientation on the first day of school, he hadn't had much interaction with the hunting hero. He'd seen him around campus a few times, mostly with Mr. Vlatking, but that didn't give him enough information to work with before meeting him face-to-face. What was he like? Was he nice? Mean? Quiet? Loud? Could he be trusted? And most importantly, if he was in trouble, why was he being sent to Mr. Hound Dog instead of Principal Nezu? The door opened, snatching Izuku out of his thoughts as the hunting hero beckoned him inside. He steeled his nerves as he walked into the nondescript office and sat in the chair opposite of his desk. "I really must say, Izuku Midoriya, you're full of surprises," the mammoth of a man said as he sat across from him. "With what I've heard from Mr. Aizawa, I was expecting an egotistical little snot-nosed punk to be sitting in front of me. I'm glad to see that Mr. Rationality isn't as infallible as he likes to think he is." Izuku's mind short-circuited as the whiplash of that exchange hit him. He was so sure that the conversation was going to end with him being insulted, but Mr. Hound Dog insulted Mr. Aizawa instead. Was that even allowed? He resisted the urge to gape, sitting with his hands folded in his lap. Obviously, he was glad that Mr. Hound Dog seemed to be a nice person, but that was not what he'd been expecting at all. "But we're not here to discuss Mr. Aizawa. We're here to talk about you." Me? Who else, Izuku? Mr. Hound Dog thoughtfully regarded him for a moment before conversationally saying, "It's come to the attention of your teachers and Principal Nezu that—" He stopped himself and switched gears. "We'd like for you to take a few tests. They're mandatory, but they won't have any effect on your grades." He opened a drawer and took out 2 impressively sized test booklets, handing them to Izuku, who rifled through them. WISC and KABC. Were these IQ tests? He couldn't do an IQ test. He was a stupid Deku. Who could easily keep up with university-level schoolwork? Was it too late to leave? They'd just drag you in here some other day. Should he throw the test? They already know how smart you are. They'd see right through it. Should he try his best? Obviously. Aren't you tired of challenging yourself to not challenge yourself in class? Would he be kicked out if he scored too low? There are people here with grades way worse than yours. What if he scored too high? That's not your problem. "Hey, don't be scared," Mr. Hound Dog reassured him. "No matter how you score, you won't be in trouble, I promise. Breathe, Midoriya. You're okay." Was Mr. Hound Dog reading my mind? He asked himself as he mirrored the older man's breathing. Well, he is a counselor. I guess I also looked pretty scared. "I've got a meeting to go to," he announced, looking at his phone and getting up. "You don't seem to be a troublemaker, so I trust you to be okay here by yourself while taking the tests." Izuku wasn't a troublemaker. Wait, what? A teacher not only calling Mr. Aizawa out on his assumptions of him, but outright saying that he trusted him and didn't consider him to be a troublemaker? What weird office was he called into today? The rough pat on his shoulder made him jump as he craned his neck to look up at the canine man. When did he cross the room? "Answer every question as best you can and do your best," he reminded him as he headed out the door. "I'll be back later on to check on you and get you some lunch, if you're still here by then. Good luck." The door shut, and Izuku was left alone at a crossroads he couldn't hope to navigate. Once Izuku got out of his head and put pencil to paper, he quickly found that the tests were actually fun. The questions were difficult but not impossible, as the answers could be deduced through common sense. Being alone in Mr. Hound Dog's office meant he didn't have to worry about a teacher breathing down his neck, and taking this test meant that Izuku could actually be challenged academically after trying to downplay himself for so long. He could use first principles thinking to re-engineer equations without worrying about a teacher taking him to task over it. He could figure out the answers to logical puzzles as fast as he wanted to without fear of being accused of cheating. He could pick the correct answers to the grammar and vocabulary section because he didn't have to be conscious of the feelings of a quirkus bully with an unfounded inferiority-superiority complex. For once, he could be in his element without caring what anyone else thought about it. All Might's voice rang through his head. It's our job to make sure that your potential is being fully realized and nurtured. We're your teachers, and it's our job to help you. Mr. Cementos' soothing timbre followed. You have a keen mind, Midoriya. I'd love to hear what more it has to offer. Miss Midnight's playful whisper came after. Will you let me borrow some of your work? It'll give the third years a nice bit of motivation for their final projects. Mr. Hound Dog's deep growl didn't faze him as it followed. I'm glad to see Mr. Rationality isn't as infallible as he likes to think he is. Mr. Ectoplasm's muffled voice immediately after. Don't ever be afraid of performing with your full capabilities, Midoriya. I'll be giving you more challenging coursework to ensure this. They were right. They'd always been right. He'd been robbed of the opportunity to act on his potential. And this was his chance to reclaim it. Whether he got a high score or not, he could at least walk away with the knowledge that he put his all into those tests. This was something that neither Bakugo nor Aldera or Mr. Aizawa could ever take from him. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 7 of An Attempt to Fly Under the Radar. Chapter 8 will be up next. I hope you all are still enjoying this one, and as always, thank you so much for listening.